Hey guys, I wanted to talk about my journey as an author, as a writer, as a screenwriter, and I wanted to start from the very beginning. I've kind of talked about it some over the years in my journey as a YouTuber and whatnot, but I haven't really given a full on video story of how I became a writer at heart. As far as I can remember, since I was 6, I would draw in my notebooks, and I would make up little comics, especially Twilight fanficky comics. I was a huge Twilight girl in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Um, I'm still am a Twilight at heart. Um, and I'm very nostalgic for the films, but those were the first stories I would tell. Um, I would take notebook paper, and make a whole story and then staple it together. Or there was this one time I wrote a whole book in a journal for science or history class. I think it was in third grade. Yeah, it was third grade, and I completely covered the journal. There was no way for me to actually take any notes, and I got scolded at by the teacher. Um, she didn't compliment me on my storytelling though. She really did like my stories. She was just like, "Selena, you better not do that again." But I think it was just my way of expressing myself. Um, Being someone who has cerebral palsy, right spastic hemiplegia, it has always been a struggle for me to feel comfortable with new people around. I always got stared at in public, um, especially when I was a younger kid before I got surgery on my arm to straighten it. There's pictures where you can tell my arm is bent, and um, it was just painfully obvious that I was disabled. But people will come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Do I need to call 911? Why do you walk funny?" And I would have to explain I was just born like that. That was just how I walk. That's just how I am. It doesn't mean I needed any help or I was hurt or anything. And it used to make me feel so embarrassed and feel so invisible because, it's just so weird to say that people can feel invisible when everyone looks at you. Um, But I did. I didn't feel truly seen. I didn't feel seen for the person I was. I felt seen for the physical limitations I had. No one saw me. They just saw my body, and they just assumed that I was weak, or um I couldn't do much. And that was always really discouraging to me. But I grew up in a nice family, a very loving family who always encouraged me to, you know, um, push my limits, not let my limits define me, and always just go the extra mile and just do the best I can. And they never pushed me outside my comfort zone, outside of my limits. Um, they were always really supportive and very loving and very encouraging of my dreams. They've always known I had a creative side, so they've always encouraged that with me. Um, they would give me notebooks, for storytelling, so I can write in my journals little stories. I remember being able to get notebooks for that alone. It made me really excited, and having a diary definitely helped me as well, because as cliche as it sounds, I really needed a diary in like spaces in middle school when I got bullied a lot. I got bullied so badly, I was physically beat by other kids, and I would get in trouble. And it didn't take long for my mom to pull me out of there and homeschool me until I graduated high school. There was a point where I tried going back to public school in high school for about a month or two, and then I ended up homeschooling again because I didn't get beat up. It's just I was very isolated. It was a culture shock for sure. They didn't push me to go back to public school. I pushed for it because I wanted the experience of going to football games. I wanted the experience to go into dances and this and that, and I felt like I couldn't do that at home. And they were really hesitant about it. They were afraid I was gonna get bullied again. But this time around, I was mainly ignored. I had one friend. It's just like we had two classes together, and I wasn't able to feel comfortable with everyone else, and I kind of felt invisible in like this big school. And it really got me into a bad mental state where I felt depressed, and I felt like the need to make up these grand stories of how I made all these friends and I'm so happy, and my parents saw right through that, but they didn't say anything to me because I think they didn't want me to like feel embarrassed about it. But there was a point where I just broke down in tears one Tuesday and just told my mom everything. Like, I'm not happy. I was wrong about this. None of this is worth it. And I got pulled and went back to homeschooling because that's just where I thrived. Compared to like public school and homeschooling, I always had better grades at home. And I know there's a stereotype where homeschool kids are like weird, but I've always been weird, even when I was in public school. And I embrace it. I think that's a beautiful thing when you can know that you're different and you can just embrace it. And we're all different to some degree. We're all different in different aspects of like our lives. Like some are born to be doctors, or some are born to be musicians, or some are born to be, actors, or in my case, a writer. And I think that's just beautiful when we can embrace our difference and just own it for what it is. And storytelling was always just my gateway to express myself. I expressed myself through characters and their journeys, and I wrote a lot of fan fiction, especially in my teens. Like I said, early in my childhood, I started with childhood fan fiction, and then in my teens, I did other fan fictions like the Kissing Booth movies, and I was like, I didn't read the books when the movies, like, before the movies came out or during the movies, until maybe around the 2020s, like early 2020s when COVID hit. But I wrote a lot of that because I didn't know what was going to happen in like part 2 and part 3. And then when I turned 17, I watched all the Star Wars movies as a whole, and for the first time ever in my entire life. And I was really into it, especially with things like the romance aspects. And I was especially into the coupling Reylo. And if you don't know what Reylo is, it's the couple name for Rey and Ben Solo. And it was just something I gravitated towards. I just loved everything weird and fantasy and romance. Like in my all-time favorite part of Star Wars in every single trilogy was the romance aspect of it. When I watch the originals, I am the most glued to Leia and Han's relationship. When I watch the prequels, the prequels are already centered on Anakin and Padme's relationship. And when I watch the sequels, I basically watch them for Rey and Ben Solo. And I wrote a lot of Rey and Ben fan fiction. And then that turned into me publishing books officially last year. And I admit that my romance books all start out as Rey and Ben Solo fan fiction. And I'm not sorry about it. I'm not embarrassed to hide it. I own it. I took the fanfics and I rewrote them and scrubbed the IP and just made it my own story. And like I said, writing was just always my thing. That was just something I expressed myself best with. When you first meet me in person, I am very quiet. I am not totally comfortable with my surroundings because of what I've went through, like the bullying issues I went through in school, um, constantly being stared at, not feeling comfortable in my own skin around people in public, and I just have trust issues. But when you really get to know me, I start to unravel like my goofy side, and when I like and when I'm into, and I'm someone who's in the dark humor, and when I'm comfortable with someone, I really get to feel like I can, you know, show myself and not feel like I'm getting judged. You know what I mean? And I just think that we need, as a society, to stop looking at disabled people and thinking that they're weak. Now, just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I want easy passes. I don't want to become a successful screenwriter because I'm disabled. I want to be a writer who just happens to be disabled. I don't want to be a movie filmmaker just because I'm disabled. I want to earn it. I want to show my talents. I want to show what I'm capable of. I want to show people, I want to show the world that I am a writer. I just happen to be disabled. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's why I, self publish. I want to inspire others who are like me, who are disabled, and say, don't let these people limit you. Like, the sky is the limit. And you need to prove everyone wrong. I want to be a voice for this generation, for the disabled people who were like me growing up, who, felt like an outsider looking in when it came to the public world, when, you get stared at and whatnot. I want to show other people that in spite of going through traumatic school experiences and bullying and feeling invisible in public, that in spite of all that, I still became a self-published author. I still became a screenwriter. And I'm only 23. I'm almost 24. I'm turning 24 next month. And it's just so wild to me how much I've grown and how much I've survived and been through in almost 24 years in my life. And I cannot believe that I've started this journey so young. And it's really inspiring to see people in my age range, get into the filmmaking business, get into self-publishing, because it proves that people my age have a voice and we want to say something. And I want to use my platform to say something. I want to be able to tell my story. I want to be able to tell stories. I want to help people escape in a story and forget about the world for maybe a few hours. I want to be able to create something that speaks to people, that makes people laugh, makes people smile, makes people cry, or whatnot. I want to make people feel something when they read or they watch something that I create. And I hope you get to follow me on this journey, and I hope to inspire others, inspire you all to make your dreams happen, and don't let anybody stop you. But I'm going to end it here in this episode. I'm releasing this episode on YouTube in a week from now. Please feel free to be a member in either of my tiers. No matter what I start tier-wise, is always going to be $5. So if you want behind the scenes, you can do a 7-day free trial and then pay $5 a month to watch behind the scenes looks, sneak peeks, and there's a special surprise for Excellent Planner tier. I'm not uploading anything yet, so until I have any updates on what I'm doing surprise-wise, please don't sign up on there yet until further notice. But you can do behind the scenes right now and view early episodes a week early in advance before I upload them on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I really appreciate you guys listening in, and I hope you guys stay tuned. Bye, guys.